be investing. And by doing so, Flexner advanced the Rockefeller and the current public health agenda that emphasizes and features pharmaceuticals instead of all the other wonderful natural healing remedies and even other professions, homeopathy, acupuncture, chiropractic. All those were demonized after Flexner. So that's going to give you some idea about the man who was overseeing the facilities and the organization that was doing the testing for military acoustic weaponry. Back in the 1930s, the Rockefeller Foundation was funding military investigations in sounds and various uses in various arenas, particularly war arenas, of what frequencies would be suitable for various psycho-emotional impacts. And they were looking for frequencies that included mass hysteria, the induction vibrationally of crowds of people going into hysteria. And the Book of 528 covers Elvis Presley, who was handled. He was being handled by the CIA and military. And you had the first audiences that suddenly went into mass hysteria at that age. And that this was because the standardization had been pushed by 1939 based on this research. They had created a effort to standardize, like we have today, the New World Order or the One World Bank, the One World Court, the One World Peacekeeping Organization, NATO, One World Health Organization. Well, One World Music tuning was part of this agenda. And in 1939, because the Rockefeller Foundation and the people that knew about what you and I are talking about, they knew that the ancient solfeggio exists, and they knew about the sacredness of this knowledge and its impact on spirituality. But they decided that they were going to institute internationally A440, and they had a hard time because of what we're talking about, love. The musicians, generally speaking, perform for love. The best musicians play from their hearts. Their bodies become the instruments. The vocalists, they sing to God. They channel God. It is a experience that some people call the registered voice. It's phase locks their being in coherence with God, God's love, angels, and they then simply administer that glorious creative blessing to move people emotionally, which is what every good musician and vocalist seeks. So the musicians didn't buy this A440 standard tuning, and they protested, and so the Rockefellers et al. Needed to have persuasion. And so they hired a considered genius in the field of propaganda. His name was Joseph Goebbels. He later became propaganda minister for the Third Reich. And that in 1939, 3 months before Hitler invaded Poland, that is at the time that the British Secret Service knew very, very well what Hitler's plans were, that Joseph Goebbels, serving the Rockefeller Foundation and this effort to standardize global tuning, persuaded the British Standards Institute to institute this mandate of concert tuning at A440 hertz. Well, there was a fellow by the name of Llewellyn Lloyd who published many years later in the Royal Society of the Arts, stating that how absurd this policy is, because when you start at the beginning of a concert and all the musicians are tuned to A440, by the end of the concert, everybody's tending to be out of tune, and pretty much naturally in their hearts they have a calling to tune up to A444. And so this concept that it was instituted that to go against love, to go against the spirit of this flow of loving creative energy that the best musicians feel. And that's why right now what's largely prompting the 528 love revolution in the music industry is not the knowledge that we're talking about tonight. It's great to have this knowledge. It's great to have this revelation, but really the proof is in the pudding. What does it feel like? How do you feel when you play or listen to A440 versus A444 or C528? And, across the board, the tremendous consensus already is that, man, something happens when you start to play in the frequency of love. You feel it. Personally, I get instantly a breath release on a much deeper level. I'm able to breathe, and I love respiration. For somebody, myself, I'm a Gemini. I have a lot of my planets in the air signs. I love air and respiration. The word itself, re-spiritualization, respire, bringing in that spirit, re-spiritualizing yourself musically, and harmonically, as we mentioned, with 528 hertz frequency being literally linked to the heart of the universe, and the heart of the universe includes God's heart. So your heart literally can commune best with God's heart when you're listening and playing and feeling the clear channel of 528. So this is the history of the standard tuning. And John Lennon, this happened about last week. We got two researchers that we sent out a newsletter. If you're not on our newsletter service, please go on there. You'll greatly appreciate the both good news that we generate as well as exposing the darkest secrets of the Illuminati and what's happening in terms of the CIA, FBI, COINTELPRO agent provocateurs that we're engaging. And your prayers are really requested. But the newsletters can be gotten by signing up for them. They're free on healthyworldstore.com, healthyworldstore.com. And last week we sent out research that was done by other investigators, and it's also up now posted on i528tunes.com, which is a website that you can transpose your A440 music, any MP3 file that let's say you buy on iTunes, you can upload it for free and it's downloaded for free. We ask for donations as much as you're able to give, and that it transposes it digitally into 528 hertz frequency. It's not as good as live. It's not as good as if you were to tape it using audio tape versus digital, but it's better than listening straight to A440 in terms of the feeling that you have in your heart and the ability to breathe deep and have a relaxation response. Like you're saying, what's happening to the youth, it's degenerating the mentality, the heart, the aggression is associated with the music, the lyrics. It's part of this whole revolution to not so much suppress any of the genres of music, but most importantly, the frequency and intention of the music. And when I say the word intention, emphasized, it's heartfelt, loving intention applied in faithful prayer that moves mountains, that creates miracles. And it happens metaphysically, spiritually. We now even have a lot of revelations as to how this manifests. And especially the 528, if you add those numbers, 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 8 is 15. And then 1 plus 5 is 6. So MI6, that's how British Secret Service got its name. Miracle 6 is the third note, it's 528. And the 6, when I did the book Love, The Real Da Vinci Code, I came out with that in 2007, and that's a great book to get also. It'll really, really help you begin to play with these numbers and wrap your head around these numbers and actually open your heart more because of the mastering of the creative language of math that these numbers present. So love the Real Da Vinci Code. I highly recommend it. But when I came out with those revelations about this frequency, it brings this whole understanding to light as to how we can vibrate in sync with the matrix that ultimately, I believe, is moving us into this reign of peace, reign of love, reign of harmony, versus this gross manipulation of the population musically, mathematically, energetically, to be engaged in the illusion, the Maya, the satanic sorcery, and the war mentality, this degenerative condition that we're witnessing. It's all around us. Just look at the air. I mean, literally, we're going down. And again, what is that? It's a choice that we are making. And musically, I think, is the best way. Again, music is the universal language. And again, you can make the biggest impact by encouraging the musicians to become aware of how, if they simply tune their instruments, or you folks listening, if you simply just transpose your music, because we live in a hydrated universe, because when you throw a pebble in a pond, the waves circle out to the farthest shores. That means that when you play music in 528, you're literally sending out a signal that opens people's hearts, that balances people's hearts, that ultimately is required for the solution. It's the prescription for the solution of what ails us, which is fear, not faith, which is hate, not love. And so we have this opportunity to change the music industry, and that's what we've done. That's the first step that we did. We created I-528 Tunes. The next step is coming up. I'm told within this month we'll be launching 528radio.com. So you can listen on the internet for free 24/7 to music that's been transposed from various genres into 528. And that, again, we're doing as a blessing because, again, the science strongly indicates that when we do that, we're sending out signals that are just not affecting the internet and not even just the people that are listening, but it's because the energetic hydrosonic matrix of creation advances, transmits these energies, these frequencies, and they have specific impacts, such as 528, specifically impacting the heart and opening and balancing people's hearts. I personally do not know of a more practical and powerful solution application to the intoxication and the degeneration that we're witnessing. So, yes, you're right on. I have the same concern about the music be degenerative, and that we have the remedy, and it's already up on the internet.
Thanks, Len. And the last question is from Romans.
Dr. Len, we really appreciate all the time you've given us here tonight. YouTube video, the term Yeshua, Hebrew for Jesus, is used. And that's vernacular for used by the Messianic Jews. Are you affiliated with them or able to share your perspective